I have a tether dog. That'll help. I got words crackers and I don't even know. Oh my God. Are there any more of these?
Yeah, there's some coming around that side.
I actually was deathly afraid of spring.
Yeah, I did. I think I did 20 of them, so you should have enough. Okay, so really quickly, guys, just to wrap up the last of this, to wrap the last part of this up. So the whole conversation has gone back and forth. You've created your bid. You've tricked it out. You've added all the boilerplate language. It's on your stationery. You've checked all the boxes, and you're ready to go. You send this in to them, and they call back and they say, "We need to cut your price." And as I've always said to you, right now, you'll say, "Hey, look, I'm a team player here. I'm more than willing to work with you. Let's see if we can get this down." But if they expect your first thing to be a reduction in your fee, that is the last place that you should start with. So again, if they insist on reducing your fee, then you say to them, if I'm going to cut my fee down, you need to cut the usage down on this. And again, get into that whole process of counseling them on usage and not having them overbuy usage, because everybody tries to get unlimited to begin with. And if you bid it out as unlimited, and they don't need unlimited, then that's actually the first place to start. But again, there's other things to go along with this. But I'm telling you right now, if you simply cut your rate, you have sent the absolute worst possible message to them about yourself, about what you think about your work, about what you think about your everything. That's just not the place to actually start with this. So one final story about this. I had an agent. She wasn't the best agent at actually getting new business, but she was the single best negotiator I've ever seen in my life. She made me and herself a small fortune. And she was just remarkable. She was so good at it. And what this goes to, what the part that I'm going to try to stress to you guys right now is that there is actually value in saying no. So let me ask you guys this, because this happens all the time. I don't know, there's a new pair of shoes that you want, and you go online, and the first place that you go to says they're sold out. And that only puts up your wanting it just that much more, doesn't it? And then you go to the next website, and now you're starting to invest time. And the next website, they're sold out too, and then you start to panic. And then you really go nuts, and you're just like, fuck, I don't care. And then all of a sudden, it's like they show up on eBay. Somebody's actually got them for double the price, and you go, I don't care, I have those, right? I mean, it's just like the fact that you cannot get it makes you want it just that much more. Well, that exists in business as well. So the true story, we were doing a job it was for General Motors, it was for their annual report, and we were bidding against a very famous photographer whose name I will not mention here in Chicago. And the head creative came back to my agent, we'd sent in our bid, and came back to my agent and said, in effect, we weren't quoting day rates, but it was a 2-week job, and so our creative fee was covering every single day. And essentially, he came back and he said, well, versus $3,500 a day, and this guy's going to do it for $25. And for $2,500 a day. And my agent flat out said to him, first words out of her mouth, well, that's really great. Then you should just go with him. And thanks a lot for giving us the chance. And he was like, wait a minute, no, wait a minute. And I became the thing that he couldn't have. And then it drove him nuts. And then I became the thing he had to have. And he ended up paying me my $3,500 a day. And it was great. But it's just, so the reason I'm throwing this out there to you guys is that there is a value in saying no to people. You can, at some point in the game here, you have got to know what your bottom line in this is, what you're not willing to go under. And if they insist that you go below that, then you tell them, no, you're not going to do that. A final thing that's has actually been added to this whole thing right now, and this is especially true if you guys are doing, if you know you're bidding against somebody else, and the thing that you should consider adding to your estimate here in this whole thing is the thing they call a treatment. Does anybody in this room know what a treatment actually is? So what a treatment will actually be is, in addition to giving them your estimate, you give them a whole sort of sense of how you would actually do the shooting. So a treatment, for instance, could be mood boards. Everybody in this room Anybody not know what a mood board is? It would basically be, you can go through and you can grab, we call them swipes. You grab imagery off the internet, images out of magazines, whatever, and you would say, I see us shooting this way. I think that this should be full of energy, and you should have young kids wearing really bright clothes jumping around. That's the way I campaign for you. And you have examples of those images in there, and you would talk about it. I see this, it's coming for spring. I think we should do a palette, an Easter palette for this stuff. So we will do a lot of color, but it'll be pale color. It won't be really intense, heavy color, whatever. I think we should do, you know, it should be big groups of people. Whatever it is, the way you see actually doing it, instead of just saying to them, this is what I'm going to charge you to do it, you tell them that this is the way I see doing it. This is what I think I can bring to this thing. I'm throwing this out as a suggestion. I mean, obviously, whatever you guys want to do, we'll shoot. But it's this whole idea that you give them some sense of how you're going to do it. And the reason I say that that helps is that it shows that you've made the investment and the time into this. It's a demonstration on your part. And especially if you're the only person who comes in with a bid that's got a treatment involved in it, you're going to be standing out on the very top. You're going to be the first person that they're actually considering looking at. So again, I would seriously consider doing a treatment as far as that part goes. So that gets you through the whole negotiation phase of it. Yes?
You keep saying, like, if you know who else is also bidding for the job,
right.
Will they tell you?
Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't.
Okay. But is
what's really more important is that you, oh yeah. And then they can always say to you, well, I'm sorry, we really don't want to talk about that. Then you can just flat out say, well, I just want to make sure that somebody else is bidding against this, or am I the only one, or we blah, blah, blah. Again, they can say to you, no, we don't want to give you that information, but I think you have every right to have that conversation with them, right? I can't imagine somebody coming back and saying, Katie, I'm really offended that you asked me that question, so let's just call the whole thing off. I just can't see that happening. Okay, so then you land the job, which is great. So when you land the job, there is a place, or actually, and you're going to see it here, if you use this, the ASAP forms here are pretty much, they're available to you, they're industry-wide, they're really open-ended, but a lot of people use these things, so that's why I provided this to you guys. If you use these things, what you'll actually see they do is, they'll have an estimate form right here, which is how you submit your numbers to a client. Once that actually happens, again, you would use your estimating language or your terms and conditions in here involved in this. Then there's this assignment confirmation form, and basically this is a form that you would, an agreement between you and the client that yes, you have got the job, but it's the way that the client can specify to you that they have agreed to all the conditions that you've set out. They've agreed to the money, they've agreed to the usage, and they've agreed to your terms and conditions. Because by them simply saying, yeah, you got the job, you have no guarantee that they've accepted all the issues that you're talking about here. You need that other step. So you would typically get, your estimate would actually be signed. If you can get this, also this assignment confirmation, you wouldn't need to have your estimate signed if they're going to do this, because everything that's on your estimate is repeated in this, and it's just a way for them to sign and say, yes, we're going to do this. A lot of times they will add a purchase order. You should request one if it's certainly a big company. A purchase order is, now all of this comes from you. A purchase order comes from them. It is them literally ordering this purchase from you, and it will stipulate everything. It will have the money in it, it'll have the usages in it, it'll have all the terms and conditions. It's their way of saying to you, yes, this is the way we understand this, and this is what, and so it lays it all out. If you've got a PO that uses your language and has actually specified all of your usages and all that kind of stuff, you are golden. And then get an advance. So we've got to talk about an advance right now. There are 3 versions of advances. So we're going to look at 2 different jobs here really quick. So let's say in job 1, you've got a fee, and I'm going to just use fee and usage all lumped together because I don't want to get really long-winded about this. So let's say you've got a fee of $1,000, and you've got expenses of $5,000. And so that's your total. So your total here would be $6,000. That's the total for the job. In this case over here, your fee is $20,000. And your expenses are $5,000. So your total is $25,000. So there's 3 possibilities for actually going in terms of the advances that you can get. The first one will hold true for everything. What you ask them for is 100% of the expenses and half of your fee. That will be the highest amount of money that you can get for an advance. Nobody's going to give you all the money. Yeah, I mean, you could go in and say, yep, give me the entire estimate. That will never happen. But if you say to them, so the number one thing you're trying to always get is all the expenses and half your fee. So you can see in the case of this, all the expenses and half the fee, your advance here would actually be for your first one. So let's do all expense, half fee. In this case, that would be $5,500, right? You would get the $5,000 in expenses and half your fee. So that would be the first way of actually going about doing this. And it'll always be the most. So the same thing will actually hold true here. So in this case, half of your fee would be $10,000, all the expenses. So the same one over here would actually equal $15,000. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. The second, and there's 2 other options that you can go after right now, and it's not that one is always going to be better than the other. You've got to work this out in your mind, which is going to be the better one. The second 2 possible options are simply half of the total, and the third one is all expenses. Those would be both of the ways they would actually do it. In the case of this job right here, half of the total would be $3,000. And in this case here, all expenses would be $5,000. So you see in this case right here that your best bet is to go for all the expenses and half your fee, but your next best bet is to go for all the expenses. You're going to get a larger advance. The worst of these would be half of the total. Does that make sense? However, in this situation over here, half of the total would be $12,500. All the expenses here would be $5,000. So again, this would have been, this is number 1 right here. This is the best one. This is the second best one here, and this is the third best one here. But you can see in this case right now, unlike this scenario right here, that half of the total, this guy's still all the expenses and half your fee is still going to be the best here. So that's always going to be the star. But in this case, half of the total is actually your second best. All the expenses is your third best. Does that make sense what's going on here? So it's up to you to sit and figure all of this out to decide which of these that you want to request. I haven't done a job, and well, again, all the retail stuff that I shoot, I don't get advances for that because all they're paying me is my creative fee anyway. I don't carry any expenses for them. But if I was doing any job where I was carrying anything, traveling anywhere, doing any of that kind of stuff, we would have money up front.
Before you even travel around?
Oh, no, before we even go. And money that's cleared, not money that's promised. Again, this is a commitment. I've told you this already. It is so much easier to get this money beforehand than it is to get it after. They will sit on your fucking invoices for 90 days, 120 days. And you'll keep saying, can you pay me? Can you pay me? And, oh, yeah, checks in the mail. But if you insist on having the advance before the shooting, there's a deadline for that. Well, we're leaving tomorrow. I don't have the money. No. No. One of the miracles about wiring money electronically this day and age is if I have to have money in my bank account in 5 minutes, you can get it there. You just do an electronic transfer. That's fine. I don't mind that. So yeah, it's no longer, oh, we'll send the check out, you know, bullshit.
So the advances are when you're like carrying.
It doesn't have to be. You can actually do it if you're only doing a fee-based thing. And again, I would certainly do this in the case of shooting for like Bonton and Neiman's and Saks and that kind of stuff. They're good clients. I don't really worry about them paying me. I don't worry about that whole part going through. But if I started out with a completely brand new client that I had never worked for, a small agency, anything like that, I never in a million years would do the job without an advance. Wouldn't even consider it, because you'll eat it. I'm telling you that right now. I did in the beginning of my career. So are there questions about this? So do we understand the difference here, guys? It's not always that half of the total is going to be the best one. It's not always that all the expenses will be the best one. You've got to work this out in your mind. You've actually got to do the math and try to figure it out. And whichever one of these is the one that you actually want to go for. So getting the advance, it's a commitment to them. It makes it a whole lot easier. There's one final issue that we need to talk about in your billing right now, and that is receipts. There is a lot of clients that will actually expect you to provide receipts for all of your expenses for them. In some cases, depending on the work, you actually are willing to do that. In other cases, you have to ask yourself. So I'm going to do a hypothetical here. You go to a printer to have a promo piece printed. Do you expect them to give you a receipt for their paper cost or their ink cost? No, you don't. However, they're buying that paper, they're actually marking it up and then charging you for a marked up version of that. If a client requests receipts from you, they're going to expect you to charge them whatever is on that receipt. So that makes it impossible for you to do the markup, right? So the issue of whether you need to provide receipts or not, you need to deal with before you do the job. Right? Oh. Does that make sense? Flat out. Do you require receipts or not? Do you know I mark up? And you can flat out say, do you know I mark up my expenses? And they'll say, well, how much do you mark them up? How much do you guys mark up? How much should you mark up? I think we talked about that in this class before. No?
17.
Exactly. 17% is considered, would be a defendable markup. 125% markup is very, very difficult to defend. So you can be right up front about it. They'll say, yes, I do require receipts. And then next words right out of your mouth is, I mark all of my expenses up 10%, or I mark all of my expenses up 15%, or whatever.
So then give them a receipt and then say,
well, they may say to you, well, no, we don't allow you to mark up your expenses at all. And then you say to them, you know, again, that's all in the whole negotiation part. What I'm trying to say to you is, though, you're much better off facing this before you do the job as opposed to after. Because if you do the job, you've marked it up, you've sent them the invoice, and they call you up and they say, well, we need all the receipts for the job. And then all of a sudden it looks like you're trying to hide something, or you weren't upfront with them about it, or blah, 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 blah. Again, being upfront about this. People don't have as much issue with money as you would think. What people have an issue with is if they feel like they're being screwed. So if it's upfront and you're just saying, you know, standard markup, it's standard in the industry, I've always done this, nobody has a problem with it, I just want you to be aware that I mark up my expenses. If you want to carry my expenses, that's fine, and there's nothing for me to mark up. So if you want to buy my plane tickets and pay for my hotel and do the model fees and all that kind of stuff, I'm perfectly fine with that. And then you don't have the hassle of it. And that's fine. Make sense? You can make a lot of money on marking stuff up, but you can lose a lot of money too. So again, decisions that you need to make. I told you about the guy here who he had his $2 million a year in photo fees and his $20 million a year as a producer. Yeah. Okay, so we've gone through all of this. We've dealt with the receipt issues. We've done all that kind of stuff. So finally, the last thing I'm going to tell you about doing jobs and doing work like this kind of stuff, and this will be the fourth most important thing I say to you tonight. You need to follow up with enthusiasm. Clients, I tell everybody this. What do I do for a living? I take a three-dimensional object, I turn it into a two-dimensional object for a one-dimensional person. That's what I do. Clients are stupid as shit. They need to be told that the photographs are great. And it is your job to not only do that, it is your job to enlist the art director to get them to do it. It's your job to get the assistants to do it. It's your job. Everybody is going around all day long going, God, I can't believe these photographs are so cool. This is just so amazing. And, you know, wow, doctors from the waist down? I never thought that could be amazing. Yeah, but these are incredible. This is just, and the photography is just insane. I can't believe this, whatever. And you are doing that all the time. After the job is over, you are on the phone 2 days later, 3 days later. I'm so excited about these pictures. I can't wait to be able to use these. I know I can't use these until you've actually released them, but when is your release date? Because I'm dying to get this stuff on my website. I'm so excited about this. You have got to sell that shit. And if you do, again, if you can get an art director to sell that to a client, art director walks in and does that same exact stuff, clients believe it. Whether it's good or not, they believe it, and then they're happy, and then they pay you, and then they hire you again. But it starts with you. It really does. I cannot stress how important this is. This is the most amazing wedding I've ever shot. That gown was the most beautiful gown I've ever seen. The church was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. I cannot believe how beautiful these pictures are. I am so stoked about this. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Really? I've shot 1,000 weddings. I've never done anything that was this incredible. Even if it's a lie. I don't give a fuck what you think about the pictures. Okay, so let's actually do a bid. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to do something the way I would actually do this. So we're going to base it on one-day fashion shoot. So for those of you who are not fashion photographers in here, don't let that part bother you. You can always just take what we're going to go through this, and instead of, so for instance, I'm going to have a model fee in here. You may have a limo driver in place of, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, you'll be able to actually use, you know, your own. We'll set it up so that you can actually look at it in a way that would actually make sense for you, for whatever the kind of work that you guys do. But it's the work that I do, so hopefully you guys you're all creative and imaginative enough. I did this very same thing in my Fashion 2 class, and the fashion designers absolutely hate this. And they always get really pissed off, and I get really nasty comments on their evaluations that I didn't teach them anything about money relative to fashion design. And I always think to myself, and I say this to them all the time, so are you really telling me that you can't make the leap from, you know, 30 rolls of film to 10 yards of fabric? That's beyond your capacity to see the similarity in that, and that, oh yeah, I get it now, right? But you know, so at any rate, so this is the issue about doing it on paper. Then this is the thing, and it's the thing that you guys have got in front of you, and so you're actually gonna, I'm going to expect this for the bids that you do. I've actually, for our assignment this week, I think the way it reads is that you're actually asked to do one bid for, I'm going to give you I give you the parameters for it, and then a second bid for a job that you would do yourself right now. Whatever it is, the kind of work that you're shooting right now, how you would actually cost that whole part out. So at any rate, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say the parameters of this job right here. I'm going to say it's 2 models, 12 shots. In studio. So relatively simple, right? So when you first approach this thing, you've got to think to yourself, how is my day really going to go? How am I actually going to play my day out? And what I typically start with is the actual sheet that you guys got in front of you. So now I'm going to do this on here. You're welcome to do it on here. I just wanted to give you something to actually keep you engaged and entertained. You don't have to do it on your own sheet, whatever. There is a copy of this. Again, all of this stuff is on the middle side, the stuff that we're going to actually look at tonight. So at any rate, I'm going to start out with this. And the thing that I always tell people, because everybody looks at this, and the thing that most people do with this is that they try to figure out the model stuff right off the beginning, right off the bat. And it's the worst thing that you can do. That's not what matters. The thing, and you'll all appreciate this, the single most important, who's the single most important person at the photo shoot? Exactly. Because here's the thing. The photographer has got to be involved in every single shot. Now, you may have different models here that are involved in certain shots, but they don't have to be on set for every single thing. So the photographer has got to be involved in every single one, right? So what we need to try to do is come up with the schedule for the photographer first, and if you can get that part done, then everybody else just gets plugged into it. And it makes it really simple. Does that make sense? So we're going to start out and think about this. How long would it take you guys to do 12 shots? Because that's what I've got to do.
Are they like 12 editorial shots? Are they 12?
We're just in the studio. We're in the studio. Well, let's keep it simple. We're in the studio, 2 rolls of seamless, two different sets. So one set, girl on white, 2 girls on white. Well, that does become an issue now, doesn't it? But I'm asking you as the photographer, how long does it take you to do a shot? Do what? Yeah, 1 single shot. Can you do one in 10 minutes? Can you do one in 20?
Really
Say what? We've got a 10 or 15. Do I have any others? The way I'm going to look at this is I'm going to say, okay, in all likelihood, looking at they need 2 models, 12 shots for the day, whatever. It's a day. Let's just call it a day, right? So I've got a day to actually do this, so I can figure that part out. In photography, this is okay. This is so unfair, but this is true. In photography, photographers get no overtime because again, you're charging a creative fee. You're not charging an hourly fee, so there is no overtime. It's just however long it takes. Whatever you quoted is what you get. For the crew, hair and makeup, photo assistants, digital techs, stylist assistant, they all operate on a 10-hour day, not an 8-hour day. All the models operate on an 8-hour day, not a 10-hour day. So a typical day for a photo crew is 10 hours. So we look at a 10-hour period to do this kind of work in. So that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be 10 hours. So out of this 10 hours, I have to do my hours to do the shoot. I've got, what do I have to do in a day to actually do a shoot? I have to set up. What else do I need to do? I'm not doing hair and makeup.
Just as a photographer set up.
Possibly do the shooting. And what else do I have to do? I have to break down. What else do I have to do? Eat lunch. So we're going to try to figure this part out. How long does it take you to set up a roll of seamless and light it?
5 hours.
With an assistant?
Of course. You've got an assistant and a digital tech both. You may even have 2 assistants. 20 minutes? You're all fucking lying to me. You cannot get a light stand up in 20 minutes. I don't care. I watched all you do this. I know how long this takes.
Hey, you said we had a couple of assistants though.
You do, but it's still, you got to hang the seamless, you got to get the lights out, you got to get it up, you got to get your lights balanced, you got to get your stuff done with it. So we're going to go an hour. I'm going to give you an hour and a half to do it just to see. But all right, so here, and now we'll just do 1.5. How much time is it going to take you to break this thing down? Breakdown always goes faster.
45.
An hour. Let's not get into 3/4. So don't do 3/4 shit on me here. All right. So the breakdown here, we're actually going to say is going to take an hour. How long do you do lunch for?
30 minutes.
1 hour.
You should budget it. No, wait. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You should budget it at an hour so that if all of a sudden you get into trouble, you can knock a half hour off. If all of a sudden you're running behind, you can knock a half. Okay, guys, we're only doing a half hour for lunch. And everybody will be fine with that. If you're really in trouble, you say to everybody, we're doing a working lunch today, which means you're shooting while you're jamming the sandwich down your mouth. Okay, so that's the beginning of my part right here. So I sort of like look at this and I'm going to say, okay, well, that's 3.5 hours out of my 10-hour day. That's what's actually going to go on here. So I've got my 10-hour days right here. So that actually leaves me 6.5 hours to actually do my shoot. Now, I'm going to say, personally, I think just a simpler amount of math is to go ahead and give myself 2 hours for setup, because I've actually got to spend time hanging out and schmoozing with my client. I actually may have breakfast there, which would take probably a half hour, 20 minutes, something like that. Nobody really wants to walk into the studio at 8 o'clock and immediately kick into gear. Everybody dicks around for a half an hour. If you've got some donuts and coffee, which, by the way, for everybody in this room who does any shooting at all, if you don't have food fucking all the time in your studio, you're out of your mind. It is the cheapest thing that you can do that makes people the happiest. I have no idea. I shoot for Nike, and it is a fucking factory grindstone over there, right? But they have got food and good food all the time, and they're constantly throwing it at you. And occasionally they have really good coffee. But anyway, it's the one thing. It's so cheap for them to do, but it keeps everybody happy, and everybody's like, okay, well, keep beating me to death, but wow, at least I'm eating well. So at any rate, I'm going to just say that, and that would actually make this 4 hours. That leaves me 6 hours to do my shooting. How long do I have to do each picture? Simple, right? If I had to do 24 pictures, how long would I have to do each picture? Exactly. If I was doing 48 pictures, how long would I have to do each shooting? You see where this goes, though. This is what you've got to do. This is what you've got to figure out. So then I'm going to plug all this in for the photographer. You can do this with me. So this is, I'm just going to use set for set time. This is setup, 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 setup. My first shot, my shot number 1's got to happen right here at 10:30. My second one at 10 o'clock. My second one is at 10:30. My third one is at 11. My fourth one is here. And I'm going to go to 5. I actually may even go to 6 because I feel good about getting to that 1 o'clock mark and I've got half of my day done, right? But you wouldn't have to go there. I mean, you could stop at 5 and say whatever. But are people going to have a lunch issue? Is that going to be a problem? I'm going to say no, probably not. So then lunch happens right in here into this spot right in here. So again, that's why I've done these by half hours. If I had to shoot every 15 minutes, I would rebuild one of these spreadsheets. I've got ones in here that will do every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. Every half hour, every 45 minutes, and every hour. That's basically what I've got. But you can build your own. And you can do this on paper. I used to always do this exactly like you guys are doing it right now. So the next thing comes is lunch. We're going to do an hour for lunch. And then I'm going to do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then, again, I'm striking, and that's my 10-hour day. And so now we can actually figure out where everything else falls in this. Does this make sense to everybody? Okay, so I'm going to start with my model number 1, my model A right here. And I know that she actually has got to be on set right here. So this is her shooting time. So when does she go into hair and makeup? How long does hair and makeup take?
Yeah.
So we have an hour for hair and an hour for makeup. Anybody else?
3 hours.
3 hours, as you said, you guys all should be shooting in New York because it's exactly what happens in New York. I had never gotten a model on set in New York before 11, 12 o'clock, ever, not ever. And you end up, this is a classic New York shooting, right? You get the model on set, 11:30, 12 o'clock. Lunch has just been delivered, by the way. We've been standing there like, going absolutely nuts because we actually have prep days, so everything was ready to go at 8 o'clock in the morning for us. But they dipped around. They came in at 9 o'clock, and they had to have something for lunch, for breakfast, and then I hit Instagram for a little while, and I got to make a few phone calls, and then and the hair person cannot fucking comb hair and talk at the same time, so they do this. They're always like this, and that shit came last night on TV, whatever, and you're watching it, and you're just going. Okay, so you still got your 12 shots to do, but you don't. So your first one goes off at 11 o'clock, right? And you're thinking everybody's starving, but that doesn't matter. Everybody feels really bad that there's no work that's been done, so you shoot till 2 or 2:30 just so that you've got part of your day done. And the food is now completely cold, but everybody eats it anyway. And so then they're done at 3:30, and then you need a half hour of hair and makeup to bring them back. So from 4 to 5 o'clock, you do 2/3 of your shooting. And that happened every fucking day I shot in New York, and I shot hundreds of days in New York, and every single one of them went down that way. Yeah, awful. So back to your hour in hair and makeup. I'm going to actually give them a half hour for each. This is not, we're not shooting Vogue here. We're shooting, we're not shooting Vogue. So anyway, I'm going to just, you will see how this works out, and if you felt like you needed the hour for hair and makeup, then you budget for that. So I'm going to actually go back. The one thing that we didn't talk about here was getting the model dressed the first time. Right? You're not giving time for that. So I'm going to actually put dressing in right here. I'm going to put hair here and makeup right here. That's how I'm going to actually start this out. So this is going to be my first girl right here. However, you would say to yourself, well, if I want to be really efficient about this, what I should do is I should have both girls there the entire day, and I should alternate them. So that while I'm shooting one girl, the other girl can be getting dressed in her next outfit, and then I'm just constantly, I've got it at me constantly, right? So that would mean that our model number 2, because her shot is going to be right here, she can dress here, right? It works exactly the way I wanted it to do, right? But in her case, she can actually have her makeup done here, but can she get her hair done here? She can if I've got a separate hair and makeup artist, but if I've got one girl doing both, can I actually have this happen?
No. No,
because she can't be doing both at the same time, right? So what that means is, and this is the first reason you actually have to do a chart like this, already I know that there's a problem there's a mistake. So if you guys are filling this out, you've got a mistake right here so far. This girl actually has got to come in a half hour earlier in order for me to have the hair and makeup person available to do this girl's hair and makeup. So this girl has hair and makeup here. She has nothing here and nothing here because hair and makeup is actually happening there. I can't shoot any sooner than this. Actually, she's dressed here, sorry. She's getting dressed here. I can't start any sooner than this because, again, the whole schedule is being driven by me, not by them. That's why this doesn't make sense to try to do the models first. Does this make sense to you guys? Okay, and then from this point on, we're actually pretty good to go. So this girl is actually, sorry. This girl is 1. Actually, yeah, I'm just going to re-put in the numbers here. And this girl is 1, 3, 5, and this girl is 2, 4, and 6. Then we get to lunch, and this girl, my odd girl right here, needs to actually be back on to do 7. Can I give her an hour for lunch? No, what has to happen in that hour? She needs to go back into hair and makeup at least for half an hour. She's got to get her lips put back on, probably something done with her hair, and she's got to get dressed again. So can she take off at this point? No. So then I look at this and I say, well, I can eat right here, but my hair and makeup artist can't. Because this girl has actually got to get back. She's got to be getting dressed here, and she's actually got to have her makeup redone here. So she actually has lunch in here, which tells me I have to have lunch there at 12:30. If I get lunch there at 12:30, she can eat. If I don't, she can't. So then this starts to inform you about when you need to get catering there. Do you get catering there at 12:30? Of course not, because they'll walk in at 12:30 and take a half hour to set up. And then your model doesn't get to eat, your hair and makeup artist doesn't get to eat. You've got an angry, pissed off crew at you. Is this making sense what's going on here? Yeah. Would you know any of this if you didn't do this kind of work? You would just say to yourself, okay, 2 girls, 8 hours a day, that's just what we'll book them for. That'll be the cost. So it's 16 model hours, and I'm going to be there for 10 hours. My crew will be there for 10 hours. Hair and makeup will be there for 8 hours, and we'll just get it done, right? So you would say that would be 16 hours of model time. Well, let's see if that's how we ultimately end up, right? So at any rate, I'm going on down the line right here. So this part will actually work out right now. I can get back on schedule again because this girl's going to be here. She'll be getting dressed here. She can actually get her makeup done right here. So that part's all working out well. And then again, this would be 10 here. This would be 12 here, her final one. This girl's actually shooting 9 and 11 here. So how long is model A got to be there? Well, it's an 8-hour day, right? Is it? What's on your list? She starts at 8 o'clock and she goes to 4:30. How long is that? 8 to 12 is 4 hours. 12 to 4 is also 4 hours, plus the extra half hour. It's 8.5 hours. So her total is 8.5 hours. And my next girl over here, she comes in at 9 o'clock. This also gives you the chart that you know when to book your talent. I can't tell you the number of people that would actually bring in both of these girls at exactly the same time. Stupid. You can't have hair and makeup happening at the same time. So they bring this girl in an hour earlier than she needs to be there, and they pay her for it. So you think, well, how bad can that be? Anyway, at this rate, I know better, and I can say to the client, well, you need to book this girl at 9 o'clock, and she can be gone by 5. What's 9 to 5? How many hours? 8. So that part works great. However, in this case right here, you see if you had just budgeted it and said to yourself, well, it's, you know, I was just going to say 16 hours. It was 2 8-hour days. But the truth is that this girl is a half hour longer. And you say, well, how bad can that be? How bad can a half hour actually be? So, yes, they do get overtime. They get paid time and a half. However, when I would do lingerie for Lord & Taylor, they were using the most expensive, well, not the most expensive, but they were using really A-listed talent. The talent that they were actually using, those girls were paying $20,000 a day. Wait a second. Wait a second. No, lingerie is triple. 60 grand a day if it's really see-through lingerie. Now, they're not getting that all day because, again, lingerie time only happens, usually you negotiate it, it's only when they're on set. But still, half-hour time on at that rate, multiply that. So your half hour here, a time and a half. So let's just let's just say, we'll be not that wild about it. We'll just say that using that rate actually would have been 40 grand a day of actual time that you're paying. That's $8,000 an hour. That extra half hour right there is $4,000, but it's time and a half. So it's actually $6,000 a day. $6,000 a day for 1 half hour mistake. Multiply that times the 2 weeks shooting. That's $6,000 times 10 is 60 grand that half hour. And you didn't budget for it. You didn't think it through. You didn't think about this. Oh yeah, and what happens if all of a sudden they were stupid and they brought this girl in when I said they typically do? That adds an hour and a half now to this. And all of a sudden the numbers just explode. Does this make sense what we're going through here? Okay, so this is what I've got going on here. When does my hair and makeup person need to be there? 8 o'clock, and she goes to when? She goes all the way till 5 o'clock, right? What's 8 to 5? 9 hours, so we're good as far as she's concerned. What about my stylist? The same thing. You guys get where this is all going, right? You have got to work this shit out on paper before you can actually go into this. This is why you can't just ballpark this stuff. Does this make sense? Okay, so with this in mind, let's actually do the bid. So if you go to the Moodle site, I've given you one of the greatest gifts I can possibly give you, and it's this thing called the US Invoice Calculator. It's actually a folder on the Moodle site. If you click on it, it will open up into its, oh, let me turn this back on, sorry. It's unit, well, here, I'll show it to you in just a second. Let me get the projector going again. All right, anyway, sorry. I was going to look for one other thing that I'm not going to find really quickly. So at any rate, okay, so it's in this week for the week of 23rd of October to October 29th. It's this thing called US Invoice Calculator. It is 2 spreadsheets. If you open this up, there's 2 spreadsheets inside of here. You want to click on both of them. They will go to your download folder. When you use this thing, you need to keep these guys in the same folder because one of them is actually a macro sheet that works on the other one. So have you guys downloaded it yet? You can leave it in the download folder right now, but when you should definitely copy this and use this for the rest of your life, I would just say. If you then click on the US Invoice Calculator to launch it, you should get a screen that comes up. It should start to launch in Excel. If they don't have Excel on these machines, that's the only reason we're in this room. They promised me. So, but anyway, you should get this thing that comes up and it says enable macros. Did that happen to you? Yeah. Go ahead and say enable the macros. if you now look at what's actually open, you will have, again, this is a sheet that you can use to generate your bid, your estimate part. And if you click on the other window that's actually open in here, it's this one called Calc Mac 2007. This is actually programming language that will do things to your estimate worksheet to actually help you make it look really nice, okay? So back on to the US invoice calculator. This is the one that you actually want to work on. And what, say what? They have to both be open at the same time. And you'll see why. You'll see in a second what it does. It's really absolutely tricked out. It's the only Excel sheet programming, serious programming I ever did in my life. But anyway, so again, my gift to you, what a guy. Remember me when it comes time to evaluate this class. Or better yet, fuck that. Remember me when I'm old and you need, I'm in the home, come visit, bring salt and bourbon. Rock me. Okay, so this is how this whole thing works. By default, the very first one is actually clicked. It's called photographic fee. I really think I'm going to change this to creative fee, but photographic fee still works. Again, it's not listed as a day rate. So we need to talk about usage now, how this thing is actually going to be used. We're going to figure this in two different ways. So this is the hard thing for people to get their heads around. So I need you to try to focus to get your head around this one, to think about this one. Typically what happens for me and most of the people that I know is that the first usage is actually your creative fee or your photographic fee. So we are going to figure it out, and I'm going to figure it out because, again, it's a day of shooting. So I am going to figure out, in my mind, a day rate. I'm never going to quote it as a day rate. It's just going to be my photographic fee. However, what the client gets for that is one usage. So if they came to me and they said, Verser, it's a one-time catalog, that's what we want. That's one usage. Make sense? So again, when we think about usage, I'm going to do this on this board over here, because can everybody see this guy over here, or this guy? It might be easier to do it on these instead of trying to drag in that other guy. So when we talk about usage, what usage typically is or the way to think about it is typically this. It is media times time. I realize that sounds redundant, but nonetheless, times time, times media times time times location. And this is typically how people will do it. There are other things that you can figure into this equation, but this would be typically how it was. So when we think about media, what media is media would be a website. It would be POP, which stands for point of purchase. You know, those little cards that sit on the countertops of like makeup counters, that kind of stuff, point of purchase. Or the posters that are in the windows of Prada or Barney's, that's all considered point of purchase. Billboards. Advertising. Or what we would call print. I'm going to change that to print. And again, this list can actually go on as well because other people will do other types of media. But this just gives you some idea of what media is. Time would again be time period. So again, is it 6 months, a year? How many of those are you going to do? If I had a client that wanted to use my work for 2 years, I typically give them a year as a single media. So 2 years would be 2 times, right? If they want to use it for 4 years, it would be 4 times. Does that make sense? Okay. And then location, that has to do with whether it's local, regional, national, or international. Does that make sense? Okay. So in this case, I'm going to say that all they want to do is a catalog. It's print. That's all it is. So I have one media. And they only want to use it one time, so I've also got that one time. And they're only going to use it in the US, so I've got that one right there. So 1 times 1 times 1 equals 1. So it is one usage total in this. Does that make sense? Let's say that they wanted to expand this, so let's say they wanted to use a print, but they also wanted to use it on their website. That would be 2 medias. Does that make sense what's going on here? So again, this would change from 2 times 1 times 1 equals 2. So that would be 2 medias. I mean 2 usages. Does that make sense?
That's 2 times your creative fee then?
We'll get to that. Then finally, let's say that they actually wanted to use it local, I mean nationally here in the United States, but they also wanted to use it in Europe. That would be 2 locations. And they want to do both. They actually want to use, whatever I said, they wanted to do a print and website as well. Actually, the website is sort of misleading. So let's not say website. Let's do point of purchase, right? Because website, by definition, is going to be worldwide. There's no way to really restrict that. So again, that's not really going to change this part right here. So let's say, for instance, we're going to do a point of purchase and print as well, catalog, and then a bunch of in-store display, that kind of stuff. So in that case, it would still be 2 media, again, times 1 year. That's all they're going to use it for. But now I'm times 2 locations. So now it is 2 times 1 times 2. Now I've got 4 usages. So these are usage. Does that make sense? And then finally, let's say they decide they want to do this exact same thing, but they want to do it for 3 years. So then it would be 2 media times 3 years times 2 locations. 2 times 3 is 6 times 2 is 12 usages. You see how this can begin to build, can't you? Typically, hold that thought one last thing, because you're absolutely right, and I'm going to answer that question right now. Typically what happens is that this first usage right here, this guy right here, would be your creative fee. So if that's all that ever happens, you don't list any additional usage. It simply would be your creative fee, your expenses, and that's it. However, if you've got other things like this, then what happens here is that these second usages and the extra 1 here, the extra 3 here, and the extra 11 here get billed at the same thing as your creative fee. So for instance, let's say my creative fee is $3,000. It'll just make the math easier. So I'm going to get rid of this right here. I'm actually going to get rid of this part right here so you guys can just, because you know what these are usages right here. So for this first one, ultimately for my creative fee, or let's say for just the total money that I'm going to make, okay? So this would be creative plus usage. For this first one, 1 media, 1 time, 1 location, it's $3,000. That's what I make on the job. For this second, where they're going to actually do 2 media also for 1 year and only in 1 location, whatever, I actually get an extra usage. I'm actually going to make $6,000 for this job. And this next one down here, it's 2 media, still times only 1 year, but times actually 2 locations, whatever. This is now 4 media here, so I actually make $12,000 for this. And finally, on this 12 usage down here, I actually get paid $36,000. And I am shooting 1 day. I'm shooting this job, this one job. Nothing in this job has changed. But the usage, look at the difference here. Would you rather make $3,000 or $36,000 for that same 1 day? Is usage beginning to sort of dawn on you guys how important this thing is? Stephen Meisel's creative fee is $75,000 for the day. Imagine what he does for product. Just that client. He shoots 1 day for product, right? Is what they ultimately end up doing with it. It is on a website, that's 1 media. It is in print, all the advertising, another media. It is in all point of purchase, another media. It is in direct mail, another media. So even if we don't go any further than that, that's 4 usages that he's got going right there, right? He does it in the United, so 4 usages for media. He's got 4 media times, he does this, and let's say it's fashion. So it's going to be 1 usage, that's all they're going to do. He's going to do it again for him next season, but we'll just say 1 time as far as that goes. They'll use it for 6 months. But then you think about his location. He does the United States, he does Europe, he does Asia, and he does Africa. 4 of those. So you've got 4 times 1 times 4, that's 16 usages. Can somebody take out their calculator and multiply 16 times $75,000, please? That's what Stephen makes. And everybody, when I show them these numbers, goes, that's bullshit, that is impossible to happen, and I'm telling you, this is exactly what happens. Yes?
What do you do when they said they want to use it forever? How do you calculate?
This is actually an interesting one. What typically happens is once you start getting up in this, and it's a great question. Once you start getting up into this 3, 4, 5, 6 usage range, at that stage of the game, they're better off probably just doing an unlimited usage, and you give it to them. If I had a client who was willing to pay me 4 or 5 usages, I would give them unlimited usage for it. I would not keep going on up and up and up like this. But that's because I don't have a killer agent. If I had art and science representing me, they would do this. And Prada would pay the 1.2 and wouldn't think about it. That's a bargain for them.
But then how do you figure out exactly how much that costs?
Again, 3 to 4 to 5 times what my creative fee would be. At some stage of the game, if I know that they're going to just keep using this over and over and over forever, I'm not going to kill them. They won't pay me for it anyway, right? So again, that's something that's part of the art of all of this, is at what point do you say, this has gotten to be worth you having unlimited usage? For my money, that happens in the 4 to 5, sometimes the 3, depending on it. If I'm getting a really high day rate, if I'm getting 10 grand a day, and all of a sudden I'm in 3 usages, and they're paying me $30,000 for a single photograph, maybe I go to 40 for unlimited. Maybe I go to 50, I would try to push it. They may balk at that and say, come on, you're really gouging us. And then say, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's just do 40. And, you know, I mean, but you're still making $40,000 for a photograph. So how many people in this room right now are looking at this and going, this is complete bullshit fancy?
I don't think the highest thing is crazy high.
Oh, I can show you. I've been doing this billing for years. Again, you can say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go in, lowball myself, I'm going to work forever as, you know, I don't know doing what. Or you decide you're going to play with the big boys, because this is how they play. If it makes you feel any better, we actually do media buy in my Fashion 2 class. A single page at Vogue magazine, the cost to actually buy a page, a single page, is about, it's right around $120,000 right now, something like that, $150,000. So let's just say it's $150,000, right? So somebody actually do this math really quick. So 150 for a page. So Prada, how many pages do you think Prada buys in Vogue every single year? 4. Fuck, they do 6 in the September issue alone.
Oh,
You're a fashion guy. Don't you look at these things? They do page after page after page in September and the March issues, the big fashion ones. 6 at least in each one of those. Probably 3 or 4 in every single other one. So let's just say 6 and 6 is 12, and let's say that the other 10 they only do 3 each. So that would be 30 times the 10 times the 12. No, let's just call it 42 pages. Can somebody do 42 times 150,000 for me really quick? 6.2 million, right? 6.3 million, okay. How many Vogues are there in the world? There's Vogue US, there's Vogue Japan, there's Vogue Italy, there's Vogue Germany, there's French Vogue, there's British Vogue, there's Russian Vogue, there's Greek Vogue, there's Brazilian Vogue. I've got 8 right now, and I don't know what I'm leaving out, but let's just round it off to 10. So this times 10, that's $63 million, and that's just Vogue. They also do this, so we got 63 million in Vogue right now for the year for Prada, right? So then let's add Elle, Bazaar. How many issues of Bazaar in the world are there? 10. This doesn't even begin to get their point of purchase, what they're doing there, their direct mail, their catalogs. It's got nothing to do with that. Billions and billions and billions of dollars in this, and Steven's coming in at 1.2 for the day. Who fucking cares? I shot for GM. I keep bringing GM up, but it was one of the biggest projects I ever did. The paper cost for the catalog that they printed was $2 million alone, just the paper. Not printing it, not mailing it. The mailing on it was $10 million. Postage. I'm just telling you guys. So at any rate, so you've downloaded this guy. So we're going to put in the numbers really quick for this because we've got time to do it. Okay, so I'm going to put it in using my figures. We'll do 2 different versions of this. We'll use the usage, the one time is our first usage here. So you will see that by default when you open this up that the first thing in the photographic fee is actually selected for you. The reason this is important to you guys is this will do all the math for you, but it will also give you a really good checklist. So for the things that you're not remembering, it's a good reason to actually go through this. So I'm going to start. If you simply hit a 1 and put in a 1 value right there, and then hit the tab key, you can change the price. So what the two things that you're going to be able to change in this without unlocking this guy is going to be the number of units and the price. So for instance, if I was going to do 2 days, a 2-day shooting, this would actually, I just would put in a 2. And then again, hit the tab key. I could change this right now, but you'll see, so it actually will do the math for you. But I'm going to go back and only put a 1 in there. Hit the tab key. When you hit the tab key again, it'll come over for any notes that you want to put in. So you could put in a quick series of notes right here. I typically do notes after the fact. I don't do them at this point. So if you hit the tab key again, it'll take you to the next line. Do you have a prep day? Well, if I did have a prep day, typically prep days and travel days are charged at half of your creative fee day. Right? So if I had 1 day of prep, they're going to let me come into the studio ahead of time and actually set things up. So we did not figure that in our setup over here, so I'm simply going to leave that blank. You can continue to just hit the tab key and keep going through all of these guys, or at this stage of the game, you can actually start to use the return key just to go down. So am I going to have a casting day? That's when I would actually show up and look at a bunch of models and help them decide who they were going to do the shooting with. That would be casting day. Travel days would be the same thing. We're doing this job in Miami. I'm flying down there for a day, we shoot the next day, and I'm flying back the day after that. That's time you cannot shoot. That's time that is owed to you. You should be getting paid for that. So, but anyway, I don't have any travel time on this. I'm going to come down to assistants. I'm actually going to put in 1 assistant. Again, do I pay my assistant $250? Well, most assistants in Chicago now, the range is running from from $250 up to $350. Some people are actually at $4, but we can go ahead and leave it at that. Tab key across on all this. I did have a hair and makeup artist, so I'm actually going to put that in. When you hit the tab key, I want you to look at what's going on up here in the bar, the toolbar above here. It's that 800 times 1.2. What's that times 1.2 for? It's an agency fee. It's to account for an agency fee. Whenever you call to get a rate quoted from an agency, whether it's for hair and makeup, styling, or models, you will be quoted a day rate or a fee to actually shoot for the day. That fee will never include the agency fee. So if I call up and I want to book Jenny and they tell me she's $4,000 a day, she then, once she comes and does the job, there will be a 20% agency fee added on top of that. So her $4,000 won't really be her $4,000. Her $4,000 will actually be $5,000 because there's a 20% bump on that. Does that make sense? And that's true of all talent that's booked through an agency fee. So what this 800 times 1.2, that times 1.2 accounts for the agency fee. It takes the regular fee and then adds enough money for the extra 20%. So what I'm actually billing my hair and makeup out here is $800 a day. That's what I was quoted. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about that? You'll also see in the notes, specifically right here, that this figure includes the agency fee. This is people, when they first start out, this is a place you can get burned, and burned really badly. Because again, you call up and you'll say, I want to book 5 models, I want to book hair and makeup through you guys, I want to book styling through you guys, and they give you all of these rates, and none of them have that 20% in there, and you put your bid in, and your bid is 20% short on all your talent. Well, who makes that up? You do. It comes out of your fee. Okay, so hair and makeup, we'll go ahead and leave her at $800 a day. I do not have separate hair and makeup. That's the reason these are broken out here, so that if you were going to have 2 people instead of 1, you could actually put it in there. I am going to do a stylist, and again, the stylist is the same thing. She's $750 a day, but when you add the agency fee on it, it comes to $9. Again, tab key across for this. The styling assistant, of course, she's going to have one. Again, the going rate somewhere between. These are real numbers, by the way, guys. These are actually good, solid figures that you can consider actually using in all of this. So she's actually going to come in at $250 a day for that. I'm going to tab across for that. A production coordinator. This is the person, again, If you're going to take this trip to Florida, she's the person who books the hotels and the airplane tickets. She's the person who actually hires the talent. She's the person who would hire the model. She would go through all of that. In a typical situation, what you think of, and the way you figure out production time is this. You typically, now this is not an ironclad rule, if you really were serious about this, you would have to call the producer and say, I've got this one-day shoot, how many days do you need to do it? And then they give you an estimate. But the typical rule of thumb roughly goes this, is that you double the amount of shooting time, and that's how long you book your producer. So in this job, it's a simple, I need to book a studio, I need to book 2 models, I need to make arrangements for lunch, and I need to make arrangements for breakfast. I might have to, if I'm flying models in, I'm going to have to book hotel and air for that. But that would be really pretty much all that's going on here, whatever. So in all likelihood, a producer can do that in one day. Make sense? So for my production charges here, I'm going to put 2 days in because the producer is always at the shoot. Now, the shoot was more complicated than that. It was a lot of talent from out of town. You might want to put a 3rd day in for that, if that would actually make sense. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. A digital tech, I'm definitely going to have a digital tech there for, again, the 450. As you come down, we haven't talked about digital production charges here, but this is a way for you to actually recover the cost of your gear. Now, in the old days, when we were actually shooting film, we would actually bump. We would take our film and processing charges, and we would add our 17% markup to that. And it was a way for us to make extra money, right? Well, you've eliminated that now with digital, but don't think that your digital gear doesn't take a hit. There's wear and tear on that gear, right? That is worth something. So a lot of people equate this to, or try to recover that as a digital production charge. However, there's another beautiful thing about this. If you put a digital production charge in, then you have something to take out that doesn't really impact your creative fee at all. If they pay it, that's great. That's more money you get to make. If they don't pay it, or if they come back and they say your bid is too high, you can actually turn right around and take this guy out. So typically the way people have done this in the past, there's on our website, there's all this material, there's a whole paper on there about justification for digital production charges and the way to calculate them. The way most people are calculating these now is about what it would cost in film and processing to do a shot. A typical shot in film and processing used to be, we would usually do about 5 rolls of film, and it was about $20 a roll. So the usual figure that I use for digital production charges is $100 per shot. We're doing 12 shots, so you put in 12, hit the tab key, and you're going across. The retouching fee, I'm not going to put anything in for that right now because, again, most people are doing that in-house right now. Post-production, I'm not going to do anything there either. However, you could consider it if you had a client that insisted that you have an assistant that was going to process every single file that you shot in a given day. A typical day for me is 600 frames. So if I've got to keep an assistant there overnight actually processing all of that stuff out, this is where that charges will go in here, but I'm not going to put that in here. I am going to put in $250 for a hard drive. That would be for digital delivery. Now again, if I'm shooting in somebody else's studio and they've got their servers already attached, then I don't charge for this because I'm actually shooting straight. We're putting stuff right on their server. But if you've got nobody delivers files on jump drives or CDs or DVDs, nobody does that. All this shit is just way too big. So if you're shooting on location, you're down in Miami, the client's getting ready to leave, you hand them a hard drive that's got all of the files on it. I charge them $250 for it, and it costs me $35 at Micro Center.
So you actually give them the hard drive?
Oh, physically give it. Yep, here it is. It's all yours. Put a nice little sticker on their box for the hard drive that's got all my name and info. It's all tricked out. It looks like it's my personal hard drive. The ones that I built. No, you laugh. It's true. I actually put stickers on the hard drive too, so that they're constantly looking. Oh, because they'll reuse the hard drive, obviously, right? But my name's on it. You can probably pull it off. Yes. Interesting you would bring that up. So the sales tax trick, we talked about this before, right? About registering for sales tax certificate here in Illinois. It does not apply to anything digital. It would only apply to if you were really doing film and processing, and then it's only the processing of the film that you charge on. If you were doing prints, photographic prints for them, that would also be considered processing. Again, if you were doing a chemical.
Yeah.
If you were doing inkjets, probably not. There's no real advantage to you to actually charging sales tax, because if you are charging it, you actually should be passing that on to the state. So the only thing that you would be doing it on would be, again, if you were actually physically processing film. But this is the hook, or what do we call it? What did we decide to call it? I didn't want to call it scam. We were calling it
Strategy.
Strategy. That's right. We were calling it strategy. Tax strategy. The tax strategy in this is that every single thing that you buy that relates to your career, everything, seamless, cameras, monitors, software, hard drives, jump drives, DVDs, it doesn't matter. If it relates to your business, you do not pay tax on it. And in return, you owe the state the sales tax on your film processing.
So like,
Yeah, the light bulb just went off. I can see it right now. Right? Be careful, your eyes don't burn out.
You like if you bought the hard drive at Amazon, and they
Yeah.
know that you don't pay the sales tax.
Exactly.
But you get that sales tax.
No. I go to Micro Center and the hard drive is $100.
Right.
In Illinois, 10.25 is the sales tax rate on here. So for everybody else in the world, they would cost them $110.25. For me, it cost me $100.
Okay.
They don't charge me sales tax. So, and I don't charge anybody else sales tax for it either.
Oh,
Okay? So sales tax is not going to come into this game. Okay. So going on down here, we are not doing any film and processing, but if you were, this is where it actually would be put in here. If you look at this scale over here, this is actually what I charged in 2007. This is what I was charging for my film and processing. So you can see that for a roll of 120 E6, I was charging $30. For a roll of black and white in 120, I was also charging 30. 35 millimeter was actually more. It was almost $40. I made a fortune on film and processing. Casting film, this would be, again, a charge for that you can actually keep separate. In most casting film situations, people were shooting Polaroid. That's what this is for. And again, the photo processing sales tax, if you were going to do it, this would be where you would put it in. But we're not, because we're not doing any processing. Talent, when we come down to here, you've got separations in the talent. Adult talent is actually books at a different rate than minors do. And also talent is paid different if they are doing fittings. What fittings basically are is when a model shows up, she's not actually being photographed, you're actually just putting clothes on her, they're being pinned, they're being altered is basically what they are. And it happens usually before the shootings. They're all paid at different rates. So the rating in our case, what we've got, we figured out on our day right here is 16.5 hours. So again, I would put in 16.5. I would hit the rate, and you can look and you can see up here that this is at $200 an hour. I don't know that you can get a model anymore that's actually at $200 an hour. Some of them you can. It all depends. Obviously, there are models that are way more expensive than this. There are girls who are actually, and guys too. It's not just girls. That's mostly what I shoot. But you would actually put in a corresponding figure to this, so whatever it was. So if they were 300, this is an hourly rate, again, based on an 8-hour day. So this would be $1,600 a day for that. That's way too cheap. So somebody do me the math really quick. Do 2,500 divided by 8. Let's do 24. It'd be 300 an hour. So let's change that. So come up to the top and change that 200 to a 300. That would probably be much closer to what it would really be. Okay, so you'll see that this is 16.5. This is we're paying by the hour now. We are not shooting any kids. We are not having any fittings. Again, talent also gets travel the same, and it's usually about half the rate of whatever they are. So again, you would put in, again, if they were traveling for the day, this would go in at 16 hours because you have 2 girls doing 8-hour day travel days for both. So that's what that would be. But we don't have that, so I'm just going to continue using the return key. I'm coming down. What does it cost you to do for your crew? What is involved in your crew? How many people do we have on our crew right now? Really quick. Does anybody know? We have a photographer. We have 2 models. We have 1 assistant. We've got a digital tech. We've got a stylist assistant and a stylist. That's 8 in my crew. However, I know I've got an art director, at least 1, and probably somebody else from the agency there too. So I'm up to 9. I'm just going to throw it in as 10 because there's always hangers on, right? So what is lunch? What does breakfast and lunch cost you to cater? Well, are you going to do pizza? If you do, your client's going to think, wow, cheap ass. I'm paying this guy $3,500 a day. He gives me fucking pizza.
Yeah.
Think bigger. So typically what I've got right out of here for you is we would do 15 a person for breakfast and 25 for lunch. And again, so if you actually did that and put those figures in, it would be this $400. You could change this. I mean, you'll look here, you'll see it's 40 times 10 people. So you would just put a 1 in here for that, or because again, I've already built that in. Cell phone, we actually used to be, there was a time we could charge for that. We can't do that anymore. What are studio expendables? Studio expendables are your profit center. So this matters. It's gaffer's tape. It's anything else that you can imagine that you're actually going to need. It's a lint roller. It's whatever else is going to go on in the studio that you're actually going to do. I'm simply going to put in $150 for that. So I type a 1 in for the unit, hit the tab key, come over, put in a $150 for that. How about miscellaneous? I'm going to do the exact same thing. Why am I doing this? Absolutely. Number one, if they pay me it, great. I just made $300 by putting in 2 figures on a spreadsheet. You will never make easier money than that ever in your life. But it also gives me $300 that I can pull out of my bid and not take a hit on it at all, because I'm not going to use $300 worth of gaffer's tape. However, they look at it and they go, oh my God, of course, Studio Expendables, of course he's got that. I don't know what they are, but of course he has them.
So what was miscellaneous?
Same thing. Same thing. See, now I know I've finally reached you. This is the part I'm going to guess you did not get from the other business class. Hopefully. I'm hoping to make a reason, because this is really how I do this. This is really how everybody does this. Okay, so we're almost through, guys. We're going to continue to come down on this. We don't really have any messages or freight stuff. A lot of times, though, you would. This would be a very serious one. It's gotten to be very problematic now, traveling with gear. Nobody actually travels with gear anymore. They would send it all ahead. So if I had a photo shooting that I knew I had to do in some river in Alabama, right, I wouldn't even consider taking my photo gear on an airplane. I would take it all to FedEx, and it would all be shipped there the week before, because there's no rental place in wherever we are in Alabama. People only rent where they go to. So if I was going to go to New York, I rent in New York. If I'm going to Miami, I rent in Miami. If I'm going to LA, I rent in LA. If I'm going to Palm Springs, I rent in LA and I drive it over. But nonetheless, nobody travels with gear anymore. It's just way too expensive. Way too expensive. So this is all freight would come into here, but we don't have any of those. So down to backgrounds and backdrops. What's a roll of seamless in this world cost? I said I got 1 roll of seamless, white seamless. What's that cost?
100.
You're all photographers. You know what a fucking roll of seamless is? A roll of 9-foot wide seamless, which is what they basically have most of at the studio, is $36. However, there's sales tax on that. So what's that? 10%, right? So on top of that, so basically $40, right? But what's your 17% markup on $40? It would be, let's just round it up to 50. We'll call it 50, right? So that's for a roll of 9-foot seamless. Is that what you guys are going to use? Of course not. You're going to use that 12-footer. And you're going to use the 100-foot 12-footer, right? And even though you're only going to sweep that down once for the day, you're going to use 20 feet of it, maybe. You are going to charge every single client for that full roll of seamless. I can get 5 billings out of that at full billing. So I've got 5 jobs. I've got a 100-foot roll of seamless. Will give me 5 of those jobs. I'm going to charge each one of them $150 for that roll of seamless. And so instead of me getting $150 and recovering that over the course of all 5 of them, I'm going to make $750. Oh, come on, guys. This is how you do it. So in my case, even though and if they were really going to hold my feet to the fire, I knew I couldn't hang on to that roll of seamless, I would buy the 50-foot, the 12-foot wide by 50-foot, and still charge them for the 12-foot wide by 100, because nobody's going to look up that roll of seamless and say, that's a 50-foot roll of seamless, not a 100-foot roll of seamless. They're never going to know. So I'm putting in $150 for that. Did we include sales tax on that? We did not. Sales tax is 10%, so that takes it up to $165 for a roll of seamless. One color. I don't need a set builder. I don't need a set designer. I'm not doing location scout permits or searches. A location scout would actually be somebody who goes to find a location for you. A location fee or permit is the actual cost of doing that. And then a file search is actually a lot of companies that manage locations have databases where you can actually search for stuff. And this would actually be, they charge you to actually do that. It would be the cost of doing that. I'm not buying any wardrobe. I'm not renting any wardrobe. I'm not buying any props. I'm not renting any props. Special rental equipment. Of course I'm charging for this. Is it your gear? I'm going to put in $1,500 for, this is just for all my gear. If you use your gear, can you charge for it? If you do, your clients will balk at that. They will actually have a really hard problem. They'll struggle with that. So in most cases, we all rent gear even though we own gear. However, I'm not saying you should do this, but I know that this is done in the industry. You are all extremely gifted in your graphic skills, aren't you? And you are all more than capable of coming up with a very convincing rental gear receipt, aren't you? I'm going to go ahead and rent my gear from somebody. I'm going to rent it from Pro Gear. I'm going to leave that at $1,500. I'm actually going to add this digital rental one here. And again, this would be per day. Why am I adding these things in here? I really probably do have a legitimate $1,500 because, again, a typical rental setup for me is going to be four power packs, 4 heads, tripod, 2 bodies with 1 or 2 lenses on it. That would be my typical setup. It'll be really close to $1,500. I'll show you websites where you can actually do this math to figure out what your true cost will be. As a matter of fact, I've got a thing on here where you can actually go through another spreadsheet where you can actually calculate this part out for yourselves, and it'll even do the whole markup for you guys. But nonetheless, why am I also doubling up? Why am I adding this $750 for digital rental equipment right here when I've already put that in my special rental equipment? No, because I can take it out. I can take it out. And if they pay it for me, or if I can come up for a way to legitimately bill it, if they don't ever ask for receipts and I get paid for it, that's $750 profit. You got, I'm telling you. Okay, lenses, you could do the same trick here, but I haven't hit them. I'm not going to hit them any harder for that. I do not own my own studio. I am going to put in a studio rental. Typical cost for studio rental for Chicago, the prices run from around $800 to $900 to $1,200. In New York, it's not a whole lot worse than that. Usually in New York, it runs from about $12 to $15 unless you get to really high-end places or you need something really, really big. So I'm going to put in $1,200 here, and I'm probably going to work a deal out with a studio guy and only pay $1,000 for it and pocket the extra $200. We are not traveling anywhere, so I'm not putting in any of these other costs right here. I typically always add for liability insurance, so I'm going to put in the cost of that. Again, it's only 1 day. I actually could put in a rider right here, and if they ask me what this was all about, I would say here I'm covering you in case somebody gets hurt, and here I'm covering you in case, I don't know, we go broke or something. Again, it's just another thing that I can actually pull out of. At these low fees right here, most people don't balk at any of that kind of stuff. It's the way that you recover your business insurance. And then finally we come down and you have these unlimited, unnamed expenses. If I was going to do the second day, we'll do the second day in just a second. So this is all I've got. This is my whole thing. I've gone through my checklist. But if there was something that was not on this list that you knew was going to cost you, you would simply type it in here. Does that make sense? Then if you look at the very top of this spreadsheet, you see this thing right here. It says use Command Option X to invoke the macro. So if you hold down the Command key, it's just to the left of the space bar, hit the Option key and hit the letter X, it sucks out all the information that you have a value for, because I've seen people actually turn these spreadsheets in as a bid. What a joke. That does not look attractive. So they actually do this guy. So they turn, anyway, so this sucks it all out. It puts your photo fee at the top, and then it orders all of your expenses from the most expensive down to the least and adds it up at the very bottom. Again, look at the very top, so because you're never going to remember it. It's the very top of this. In the G column, G1, it actually tells you what to use. Command Option X. So we are going to do one last thing here really quick. We are going to put in an unnamed expense. We are going to put in second usage, or just usage. Don't add second. It's what it is. And again, type over. We're going to hit 1, and again, it's going to be the same as our creative fee, which was $3,500. What I'm doing now is I'm giving them the second one. This very first one, they got, for my creative fee, they got 1 usage. But now they've gone and they've added a second media. So at this stage of the game, I put that usage down here. It's listed just like this. I hit, again, Command Option X again. It will recalculate it for you again. And it will, again, at this point, it drops your usage right into here. And now, and this is what I was talking to you about. Do you want your creative fee to say $7,000 for 1 day? Or do you want your creative fee to say $3,500 for the day and $3,500 in usage? Which is more palatable to you? Which is more palatable to the client, right? But it's the same $7,000. Finally, and it's the last thing we're going to do, and we've got to do it really, really quick. What money can we take out of here? Well, we've already put it in here. I already told you. I could probably lose the digital production charges. That's $1,200. I could probably lose the digital equipment rental. That's $750. I'm at $2,000 I can pull out of here right now so far. I'm looking down here. The rest of this, I probably can't take that out. Studio expendables and miscellaneous, that's another $300. So right now I've got $2,300 I can pull out of this bid. And I can probably pull the insurance binders out of there as well. So that's another. So I can pull out almost $2,500. I've got a $20,000 bid, a $23,000 bid in here. I can get this down close to $2,000. I mean to $20,000. That's a 10% reduction. And I didn't change my rate 1 iota. I didn't lose a dime. There's a couple of numbers that I put in on a spreadsheet. Finally, the last thing. This. Is there any way that I can make this better? Client says to me, this is just too much. You've got to chop this down. You've got to cut this down. I can't do this.
Each shot in 20 minutes, right?
You could do each shot in 20 minutes, or you say to yourself, there's going to be no dressing time at all. I'm going to do another one right over here. We'll just call this the second version of models. So this would be model A. This would be model B. We're just going to drive her really hard. So model A actually does shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. She still does her dress here, her hair and makeup here. Model B still, my time doesn't change. She does 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. She has to have dress, hair, and makeup. So my model number A right here is starting at 8:30, and she is done at 1 o'clock. How many hours is that? 8:30 to 1 o'clock. 8:30 to 12:30 is 4 hours, so this is 4.5 hours. And then my model number B right here, she's starting at 1 o'clock, and she goes to 5 o'clock. So that's 4 hours. My total model time is now 8.5 hours instead of 16.5 hours. So you go back up. You're not going to see this on the screen because it's gone. But in your spreadsheet, go back up. And where that 16.5 hours was, put in 8.5 hours. And you'll see that we were at almost $6,000 for model rates. We've now cut our model rate in half. I just knocked $3,000 off the model rates by doing this. $3,000 off my model rates, $2,500 off of those extraneous charges that I actually put in here. I had a $23,000 bid that I can knock $5,000 off of and not lose a penny. That's how you do it. Are there questions about this? I'll see you next week.